Chapter 3. Rue's almond-shaped eyes widened, and the corners of her mouth twitched. The whole block? Charles leaned back on the sofa and nodded. Is there a problem? Rue hesitated for a long time before saying, Mr. Duncan, I've been doing my best to introduce the unit to you. I was just doing my duty, so it's fine if you don't want to buy it. But please don't pull my leg. She had never seen anyone buy more than 2 houses in Jonestown Bay before, yet this young man was asking for an entire block. That was just too ridiculous. Charles smiled. It seemed that the girl did not believe he could afford it. It's just 1 block. I have no interest in pulling your leg. Let's hurry up and sign the contract. Oh, okay, if you say so. Rue could not be certain when she saw how confident he was. So she took Charles back to the sales office. From time to time, she would glance back at Charles, afraid that he would run away. When they arrived at the sales office, Rue rushed to get the contract. In the manager's office, Deidre Chase was touching up her makeup. She was only 28 years old, but she had already reached the position of general manager. It was all thanks to her beauty and tactics she made it this far, so she had to maintain her image at all times. Manager, I need a contract, Rue said as she entered the room. Deidre was taken aback. Oh, did you manage to secure a deal today? Deidre looked after Rue, the freshly graduated newcomer, because she could see a shadow of her own youth in her. However, she only looked after Rue in terms of her daily routine. Rue would still have to come up with her own sales results. Deidre pulled out a copy of the sales contract and handed it to her. If you manage to close the deal, it's my treat tonight. Rue was not in the mood to think about food. She shook her head and said, Manager. 1 copy is not enough. Deidre was a little surprised. How many do you need? 102 copies. What? Are you sure they aren't leading you on? Deidre yelped. 102 units sold at once? In all her time in the sales department. Deidre had never seen anything so outlandish. Rue felt awkward for a moment. I don't think so. She certainly hoped Charles was not a liar, since she really wanted to seal the deal. That was why she wanted to give it a try despite her suspicions. Deidre sighed. Convinced Rue had been duped. Getting to her feet, she said, Come on, show me the guy who wants to buy 102 units at once. Strutting in her high heels, Deidre was the very picture of talent and authority. When she arrived at the reception room, she was even more convinced of her earlier doubts. However, she was shrewder than the other real estate agents, so she said calmly, Hello, Mr. Duncan. I'm the manager of the Jonestown Bay Sales Department, Deidre Chase. I heard that you want to buy 102 properties. Charles looked at Deidre. She wore a black business suit and was nearly 5'7". Her figure was graceful and curvaceous. Her slender legs were wrapped in alluring black stockings. Her exquisite face was covered in light makeup, making her look charming but not overly seductive. Rue may be pretty enough to be a school idol, but Deidre outshone her completely. That's right. Deidre's lips curled into a charming smile. Mr. Duncan, Jonestown Bay Mansions costs $60,000 per square meter. In other words, each unit costs about $40 million. There are a total of 112 units in a block. Setting aside the 10 that have already been sold, you'll probably have to spend more than $4 billion. Charles laughed. This woman did not believe him, did she? Only $4 billion? That's nothing. Deidre's mouth twitched. $4 billion was nothing? What kind of business is your family in, Mr. Duncan? Why do you need to buy so many units? Deidre had been in the industry for so many years. But she had never seen someone buy so many houses for no reason. If he had that much money, shouldn't he develop his own real estate? Moreover, Charles was too young. He was either the heir of a large family, and the 4 billion was just pocket money to him. Or he was simply pretending. However, she was more inclined to the latter. She had gotten to know all the big families in Jonestown in the hopes that she would join their ranks one day. Even so, she had never heard of a wealthy family with the last name Duncan. Miss Chase. Are you worried that I can't afford it? Deidre smiled. Not at all, it's just that 4 billion is not a small sum. I'm just trying to remind you that once the contract is signed, there's no going back. Charles laughed. To me, it is a small sum. Forget 4 billion. Even 40 billion or 4 trillion is nothing to me. Even if he spent 10 trillion today, he would still get another 10 trillion tomorrow. 4 billion really was just a drop in the bucket to him. Deidre stared into Charles's eyes, but she could not see any deceit or guilt in them. She really did not understand where this kid got his confidence from. In that case, I'll prepare the contract for you, Mr. Duncan. Deidre got up to get the contract. She wanted to see how capable Charles was. If he dared to cause trouble in Jonestown Bay, she would make sure he could not leave this office today. Did he really think she would let him do whatever he pleased just because she was a woman? A moment later, Deidre retrieved the contract and Charles signed it. Deidre asked without hesitation, "How do you plan to pay, Mr. Duncan?" "Via fingerprint transfer." Deidre quickly opened the bank transfer program and held the machine out to Charles. "Please go ahead and make the payment, Mr. Duncan." It was a total of $4.3 billion for 102 properties, including the various processing fees. Deidre was very calm. She simply wanted to see how Charles would end this little ruse. On the other hand, Rue was extremely nervous. Her sales targets were at stake here, so her eyes were glued to the screen. Charles did not hesitate at all. Beep, payment successful. In an instant, the reception room fell deathly quiet. Deidre's pupils gradually dilated. No way. This guy really had $4.3 billion.